All right, I see everybody's connecting as participants. So good morning and welcome to the Chiefs briefing for the December 9th, 2025 Braddock District Special Election. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to all of our chiefs and assistant chiefs for joining us for this special election and for coming back after our 2025 gubernatorial election just 2 weeks ago, if you can believe it. We really appreciate everybody's service in this special election and for being willing to join us here this morning for our Chiefs briefing. I've got a number of people on the webinar with us today. First of all, my name is Sean Rogers, and I serve as our Training and Operations Manager here in our Election Administration Division in the Office of Elections. And I'm honored to be presenting this briefing on behalf of our Electoral Board, which consists of our Chairman, Catherine Hanley, our Vice Chairman, Kevin Pinckney, and our Secretary, Jeffrey Shapiro, as well as our General Registrar, Eric Spicer, and our Deputy General Registrars, Cheryl Jones and Ravi Udeshi. I'm going to take a moment here to offer them a chance to deliver some opening remarks before we get into it. Ravi, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Thank you, Sean. It feels a little weird not being the person starting off this briefing, but we're in great hands with Sean here as our training operations manager who's been working in elections for more than 10 years. I just wanted to share a brief update with you all. I wanted to mention to you that I've really enjoyed working here in the Fairfax County Office of Elections for the last 8 years. But unfortunately, this December's election is actually my last election here. I've accepted a new position in an elections office in another state. And so I will no longer be with this office after this election. That said, I'm very excited to work with all of you in this December special election, make sure everything goes smoothly, and work to transition many of my duties to other staff here in the office. You're in very great hands again between Sean and all the other folks here in this office. So I just want to say on a personal note, thank you so much for all the great work that we've been able to do together. And I look forward to seeing all the great things this office continues to do. I want to turn over to Eric if he has some opening remarks. Eric?
Thank you, Ravi. Appreciate it. And for those of you that who know Ravi, he is an exceptional person, professionally, personally. You just don't come across anyone better than Ravi. We both started about 8 years ago, and I consider him a friend, colleague. Just I think we've learned a lot from each other, and our office has gotten better and better. I've been the director the general registrar for almost 4 years, working side by side with Cheryl and Ravi, and it's a pleasure. It's just fun coming to work. I want to thank Ravi, Sean, Jean, the rest of the team. Beth, of course, is outstanding. I want to thank everybody because they've been working really hard this year. As Ravi said, as Sean said, we just had an election a couple weeks ago, and we're thinking maybe we just have one every week. How about that? But just kidding. But no, thank you everybody for hard work, and thank you to you because you make it happen. Our election officers, we're the front line with the voters. And as you know, if you have any questions, we've got a fantastic support staff. They give you a lot of preparation. And I won't take up any more of your time. Just really want to thank you. I turn it back over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Eric. An election every week might get a little bit complicated, but I know many of us here would be excited about that prospect. Hopefully we won't have to worry about that anytime soon. Thanks for sharing that update. And I think I can speak for a lot of us here when I say, Ravi, you're really going to be missed and appreciated for all the work that you've done here. And thank you. And that helps explain why everybody's hearing from me now instead of Ravi. Moving on to the briefing here, I'll set the stage and set the agenda for us. So we have a number of staff here with us for this briefing. As I mentioned, my name is Sean Rogers. I'm our Training and Operations Manager. I'm also joined by our Clerk to the Electoral Board and Polling Place Liaison, Beth Methfessel, our Election Officer Manager, Arash Setayeshi, and our Training and Operations staff, Jean Tenson and Susan Burnell. We'll be presenting several sections through this briefing, and then turning it over to Q&A at the end. In terms of our agenda, we're going to cover an overview of the election and what's new, and then walk you through a couple of changes and reminders for before Election Day, during Election Day, including opening the polls, some non-routine and provisional voters content, and closing the polls. Because as I mentioned, we had an election just a few weeks ago, so there's not really a lot of time for us to have changed a lot. So don't expect a lot of new changes coming up for what's new. And to that end, we're going to try to keep this briefing brief. Hopefully we'll have you on your way in about an hour here. all things told with everything I just described and depending on the number of questions. If you do have questions anytime throughout this briefing, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen on Zoom to submit them. We'll be answering them throughout the briefing and then answering a number of them live at the end. So jump in here with an overview of the selection. We'll start off with your Chief's notebook, which we would typically have posted and available online right now. One thing I'll say is that it's not yet available for this special election, but will be early next week. So we'll be sending everyone a link once that is available, and Arash is going to talk to you more about how to pick up a physical copy of your Chief's notebook, because as I'll talk about in the next section, some things are kind of different in terms of our timelines for the special election. However, as usual, the Chief's notebook will cover everything you need to know. So we'd suggest once we get that out to you to familiarize yourself with that, review the table of contents, and review any relevant sections, especially anything that threw you for a loop on this past election day. Hopefully, having just served in the gubernatorial election, you're familiar with a lot of stuff, but we will have that posted and ready and able to get out to you soon here. As part of that Chief's notebook, we have checklists for every procedure. So we give out in the Chief's notebook and in our during the day guides, one-page guides for every process that you could have on election day. You can see here on screen, we have a number of them. We have our green guides for opening, our yellow guides for during the day, red guides for closing procedures, and purple guides for the Monday setup before the election. Additionally, you have the black guides for the Chief's opening checklist and the Chief's closing checklist, which is also in the Chief's notebook. And I'll give you a little preview. We haven't changed very much of any of these, but they would include any updates that we make, and they are always up to date. So you'll receive those on election day, and you'll be able to review those online as soon as we get that posted for you. And we'll also hand those out to you. And again, Arash will let you know a bit about picking up your Chief's notebook. But the thing I want to stress is that we want to make it easy for you so that you don't have to memorize a ton. You'll be able to follow the checklists and give us a call if you have any problems. So let's talk a little bit more about what this election is. There's one contest on the ballot. It's to fill the supervisor for the Braddock district that was for the term that was filled by a prior special election that we just had for James Walkinshaw. So there's just the one contest on the ballot for the Board of Supervisors in the Braddock district. I want to mention something a little bit out of the ordinary. It's not necessarily abnormal, but it's a small quirk here. This is not a change, but just FYI, registered voters who are currently 17 years old, but are going to be 18 by the next general election, are eligible to vote in intervening special elections. So this shouldn't affect you significantly because they would be already registered to vote or be eligible for an SDR. But just like we have in a primary election, when someone can vote in a party's primary before the general election, a similar thing happens for special elections. So just an FYI for you to be aware of, and this ballot is just one contest. So hopefully it won't take too long for voters to fill out that ballot in the voting booth. Talking about our resource allocation that we have in our precincts, it's a little bit of a smaller election. The special elections in general tend to have less turnout, especially as compared to a gubernatorial election that we just had. So you're going to have 3 to 5 e-poll books, depending on the size of your precinct for your number of registered voters and historical turnout trends. But you will receive the normal amount of ballot marking devices and ballot scanners and admin tablets, 2 of each of those. We'll talk a little bit more about this during a later section, but you'll be setting up one ballot marking device, and as usual, as always, setting up both ballot scanners. However, if you don't have very high turnout, you're welcome to turn one around if that makes it easier to manage your room a little bit better. You'll also be receiving ballots for 15 to 30% of registered voters, which should be sufficient for you. And you'll be receiving 5 to 7 total election officers, including the chief, assistant chief, collector officers, and all other officers, including language officers where appropriate. I do want to mention that we will not be assigning provisional specialist officers of election in this special election. Just like primary elections and in lower turnout elections, the chief and the assistant chief, so you all, will be entrusted, empowered, and expected to perform all provisional duties from the normal determination of whether or not a voter should be voting a provisional ballot all the way through to the provisional checklist on the back of the yellow voter referral worksheet, entering it into the provisional log, being with the voter while they fill out their envelope, and so on, the whole step, the whole process all the way through. You do have 2 admin tablets. If it's helpful with that, you and your assistant chief can split those duties however you see fit, or however will be best for you. So let's go into what's new for this election. It's a special election, so we have a couple of special changes. And as you can see on this slide, we have some special effects to drive that point home. As normal, or as you may have noticed, this briefing is on a Friday. Normally, we would do a chief's briefing on a Tuesday, but as I alluded to earlier, a lot of our timelines are a bit out of sync when we have such a special election with such a short turnaround, just about 4 weeks after a general election. So we won't have some of the things that we normally do. Notably, we won't have a chief's open house for this election, which begs the question, how are we going to get the chief's notebook to people who choose to pick them up early? Arash will talk about that, but it's essentially going to be by appointment. And if you aren't able to pick up your notebook early, as normal, we'll deliver it in your black kit the day before the election. Generally, we would have a lot of resources ready for you right now. Our election officer portal is still in the process of being turned around from one election to the other. So some things aren't showing there yet. We hope to have that launched next week for you, and we'll send you an email for any updates. Of course, we're going to give you all of your resources, your roster, polling place information, and so on. But we wanted to do this briefing as early as we could to give you the information as soon as we could and not wait until then. And also next week is a holiday week. We know a lot of people will be traveling. Facilities may be closed. We wanted to get this information out to you as soon as we could. Additionally, schools are going to be open. Beth will talk about that, but that is going to change a little bit. Access to the precinct, access to your voting room. That's different than a normal November election. And we'll only have one depot, the Fairfax County Government Center. Ordinarily, you would be able to pick which depot you can pick up from and pick up your materials from and return them to. Because we are here in the Braddock District, the Fairfax County Government Center is the only depot open for this election. So those are some of the changes. Those are some of the specific things special to this special election, owing mostly to the timeline that we have to work with here. I want to talk about something else that's special for this election. In terms of what's new, I said there's not much. This is something notable. The Office of Elections is exploring a new vendor for our ballot printing, and that's us. We're running a pilot program where we're going to be printing ballots for a subset of our precincts to explore potential cost savings and operational efficiencies that we can leverage by doing in-house ballot printing. This will help ensure print quality and logistics in the future, especially as we have smaller elections where ordering ballots from our vendor might not make as much sense. But we are running it in this small special election to see how it works and make sure that we have our head around all of the details surrounding that. So about 2/3 of our precincts will receive the normal vendor printed ballots as usual, no change. 1/3 of our precincts, roughly, will receive the majority of their ballots printed in-house from us. However, they have all already gone through the same logic and accuracy testing standards that we do for all of our ballots. And they are expected to function exactly the same, and they have been tested exactly as rigorously as the normal ballots that we receive from our vendor. Because this is a pilot program and we want to be careful about changes, these precincts will also receive, as a backup, a pack of 200 vendor printed ballots. In case there are any issues, you'll have normal ballots ready on hand. These are the lucky precincts, the lucky 9 precincts who will be receiving most of their ballots as in-house printed ballots. The nice thing for this is that what are the effects for you in the precinct? The answer is not much. So we'll be sending the ballots out to you in a different way. We will package them ourselves in a large trip-lock bag. So it is a tamper-evident trip-lock bag. But from there, all of your normal processes take over. So you'll still use your ballot receipt and record your packs of ballots in the same way. And your SOR will be filled out the same way. These are packaged in sets of 200, so it shouldn't change any of the math or the counts from normal. It's just don't be surprised when you see your ballots packaged differently because we're running this pilot in these precincts. One other thing I want to mention, I talked a minute ago about how schools are going to be in session. I'm actually going to turn this over to Beth for a second because that changes a couple of things about access and some considerations there. Beth, you want to go into detail on this?
Sure. Thanks, Sean, and thank you all very much for being with us today. As you know, it bears repeating, school will be in session, and that does change pretty much the dynamic for all the polling locations that are being held in FCPS facilities. So as you can see on the slide, student drop-off is about 7 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. We have multiple elementary schools, one middle school, and 3 high schools in this special. All of those have slightly different drop-off and pickup times, but the 7 to 9:30 a.m. and the 2 to 4:30 p.m. pretty much covers when access at this school will be challenging. Along with that, there are going to be different entrances and voting rooms for this election because the students will be in school. Of the 22 high schools, only 4, of the 22 school facilities, only 4 have no known issues. Voters will be going in the same entrance that they're used to. They'll be voting in maybe half the gym as opposed to the entire gym. So that left 18 schools with different entrances and voting rooms, and they've all been visited, and extensive notes for those that will be quite different have been uploaded to the portal for you all to for that information to help you with your setup. In locations where the entrances are going to be different, we are going to make sure that each of those gets one of those large A-frame stands to post a large poster on that says the polling entrance has changed. It will be door 3. And so also to support voters, which I'm expecting may call when they come to the school if they aren't aware that school is in session, and be very confused by all of the cars that will be at most of these locations, the fact that their main entrance won't be available to them. So if they do call the office, we'll be able to get them to the right door. So having said that, I will answer any questions at the end with respect to your polling location, or you can certainly contact me offline if you have any questions about the information that I have put in the portal for you. Okay, Sean, back to you.
Thanks for walking us through that, Beth. We're very grateful to Fairfax County Public Schools for being a partner with us as polling places. And we're glad that in some elections, they are able to close school so that we can have unimpeded access to the polling place. But nevertheless, we're happy to work with them in special elections like this. And as Beth mentioned, she has been visiting these schools to work through the way that the access and room specifics for each one. We'll have that in the election officer portal for everyone next week. We'll send an email notifying everyone so that you can use that for planning purposes. And the good news is if you're not in a school, you don't have to worry about all that. If you are in a school, though, be sure to look at the details for your facility because it's likely to be a different or an adjustment from usual. One other thing I want to mention is something that's not new. So we usually like to talk about what's new for this election and what was new in prior elections. And so this is a change that we brought out in November, and it's still going to be in place for December and going forward. Your e-poll book case. We changed that from multiple cases for each e-poll book to one case for all of your EPBs to go in for the entire precinct. This changes the machine certification form for your precinct such that you no longer have to record the opening and the closing seal number for each of these cases. You just have the one that you're sealing at the end of the day. You're confirming the zip tie seal in the morning and writing down the closing seal number at the end of the day. So the machine certification form changed in the November election. It has not changed for the December election, but that change is still in place and will be going forward. That was one of our more major changes for the November election. So I want to go over that here now to remind you of that and let you know that you can expect that as well. Similarly, the e-poll book case requires some assembly, or rather the EPBs in the case require assembly by election officers. This is something that election officers may not be used to doing, and that is attaching the arm on the back of the device into the slot that it goes into there. In the past, we've always sent them out already attached, and I'll be honest, it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. You just clip it right on there, and hopefully you didn't have any issues in this past election. Just be aware that that's something that will be in place now for this election, and in the future, all the components will be assembled during morning setup and returned to the case at the end of the day. These cases are really nice. They were we custom made them for Fairfax County's specific use, and they fit all of our supplies very precisely so that we can have a much more streamlined process from start to finish, from when we test them and send them out to you, and when you receive them, set them up, use them, pack them, and send them back to us. And I've got no more slides for what's new. Normally we cover a lot of things, but the election was, our last election was just a few weeks ago. We're having another one in a few weeks. There's not a lot of time for us to change things on you. So like I said, hopefully we can get you through this briefing in a shorter amount of time than usual. I'm going to turn it on over to Arash here, who's going to talk about some considerations for before Election Day, and then continue with Election Day, especially with this timeline for the special election. Arash?
Thanks, Sean. Like Sean said, we were all just here about a month ago, so not too much should be different, but appreciate everyone for being here and giving us some of your time so we can go over some of the things leading up to this election. So again, if there's anything to take away from my section of the briefing, it's this slide. We'll be in touch with any relevant and important updates between now and Election Day. So please make sure that our number is saved in your contacts and our email is whitelisted in your email inbox so that it doesn't get sent to your spam or junk email folders. One thing that's a little bit different is we're going to be having you continue using your pre-election checklist. The version that is in your chief notebook is going to be the one that you're going to be using as a reference currently as we work to make things that you're normally used to on the portal become accessible in between elections. But just keep the same amount of attention to the timeline regarding contacting polling place, contacting your election officers, and preparing for setup. Just a couple things to highlight. Contacting your polling place facility will be provided to you. We have a list in the chief's notebook of the type of things to ask them about and check on in terms of logistics of parking or table and chair availability, coordinating a setup time. The sooner that this is done, the sooner that any issues that can be troubleshooted to help provide you, your team, and your voters with a seamless voting experience. You will also be getting a full roster of your election officers that have confirmed by now, down by their positions and their relevant contact information, including their phone numbers and emails. There's also a template in the chief's notebook, as you know, of the kind of information to convey to your officers as a reference. While we will be reaching out to the EOs on our own, it's very important that they hear from you as soon as possible so that any issues or concerns can be addressed. We also ask that you keep checking back in the portal at some point when we let you know afterwards so that as people drop out or cancel, we will be replacing them and you'll be able to see who their replacements are so that they also can be contacted. We also may be needing to transfer someone to your precinct or another one based on the demand or party parity, but you should be seeing someone assigned in their place. One big reason to be in touch with your team is to also be able to coordinate your Monday setup. So to have a successful setup, we will need you when we let you know to be able to go in and select your supply pickup time. And it's only at one depot, so it should make things a little bit easier, but afterwards, you'll be going to your polling place to go set up. Like Sean already mentioned, because of this turnaround and not too many changes, the chief notebook will be available a little bit closer to the election. We will be sending out info regarding setting an appointment time to come pick up on the Tuesday and Thursday before the election. Otherwise, the PDF will be made available online next week, and your chief notebook otherwise will be in your chief kit that you can pick up on Monday. So on Monday, December 8th, once you come to the Fairfax County Government Center depot to pick up your supplies, we ask that you go straight to the polling place for site setup. And as it's already been mentioned, it is during school hours, so you will be coordinating with your polling place contact on the best time to do that. And again, aside from all the other chapters that are very important, we ask that you review chapters 14 and 15, leading up to election day, so that if there is something that were to happen, we would not need you or anyone else to be thumbing through the notebook. You will be able to act swiftly and purposefully as the main leader in addressing whatever may have occurred in your precinct. Now moving on to opening the polls. Similar to last time, you're going to be setting up 2 of the ballot scanners and 1 ballot marking device. Unlike November, you may not feel like both need to be used at the same time. We trust your discretion to use one and have the other one turned around until it may be needed. However, it's very important that they both have the voting mode enabled at 6 a.m. So you want to press go to voting mode on both of them at 6 a.m. And therefore, if you want to turn one around and use it later, you're welcome to, but they both need to be activated. Something else also that is going to be important is all of your equipment, such as the equipment keys, the password cards, voter permit cards. As a reminder, it's going to be in the orange pouch, which will be in your supplies. However, that should not be opened until election morning. That's why I didn't mention it during the days leading up to the election. Again, in preparation of any kind of emergency, it's going to be really, really important that after everything is set up, before polls open, we ask that you take the time to take your team aside and go over all of the procedures regarding any kind of emergency evacuation or anything else that's needed. Your election officers can definitely go through each position's evacuation guide so that they are also prepared in case something were to happen. They would know what their role would be. If someone does not show up at 5, please let us know after 5:30 if they have not shown up so that we can dispatch a reserve. Otherwise, if they are late, but they still arrive before 5:30, please proceed as normal, swear them in, and note that they arrived late. As we've talked about before, on the inside cover of your chief notebook, there's going to be 3 numbers that we provide for any kind of support you could potentially need on election day. Those are going to be the general support number that comes to our side of the office that deals with anything related to operationally or any kind of general issues. However, if it's a voter-related question, if it's voter registration issues, anything related to SDRs and provisionals, there is a specific number that will go over to Bushra and her team with voter support. We're going to be very, very, very efficiently able to help you with that. And finally, if it's an equipment issue, we ask that you call the tech support number, where there will be plenty of people who can help walk you through issues, and therefore, if need be, dispatch a rover. We ask that you call the tech support number instead of your rover first in situations like this, in case they need to walk you through something and not necessarily call a rover for you. If you are missing any kind of supplies that you're going to be needing later in the day, you're noticing you don't have enough voter permit cards, you don't have enough things later in the day you'll need, we ask that you wait until after 6:30 or 7 a.m. to call us and let us know, because up until that time, we are going to be working to dispatch reserves to any locations that need them. And so we ask that the phone lines be available for any no-shows or any early departures, and we can handle those. And now, during the day, as always, we're going to be asking everyone to, using their admin tablets, submit their turnout surveys at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m. You may ask any election officer to complete the turnout surveys, but we do ask, for the sake of transparency and being able to see what the status of every precinct's turnout is, that you do pay attention to submitting all three. If there are any tech support issues, please notify us. As for the list of authorized representatives or anyone else who is allowed inside the polling place, we have a full list in your chief's notebook relating to what they will be needing to provide to confirm their credentials, as well as what level of access they may have. As a reminder about the media, refer to the notebook for specifics, but remember that there are restrictions based on what they can film, where they can interview, and for how long they are permitted to stay. Any specific questions or doubts, we ask that you call the office, because that's where we can potentially provide guidance for any edge cases or things that you may not be sure of. And in terms of an emergency, we ask that in the event of a life-threatening or urgent emergency, we ask that you call 911 first for immediate assistance, and then we can be notified at our general support number. Anything related to notifying us, keeping us up to date, but we ask that you do not hesitate to call 911 regarding issues that could affect your election officers or voters' safety. One such thing could be if there's a medical emergency in your precinct. You can find this in the red emergency envelope. This could happen to a voter, an election officer, or anyone else inside your polling place within the 40-foot line. If there's anything such as falls, anything that's related to someone having a medical emergency, we ask that you fill out this form prior to their departure. But also we would like to be notified soon after everything has been triaged and handled. And I'm going to kick it now to Sean to go over non-routine and provisional voters.
Thanks, Arash. I'm going to continue here to talk about provisional voters and non-routine voters. As a reminder, we won't have provisional specialists assigned in this election, so the chief and the assistant chief will be handling everything they normally handle, plus the rest of the process. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about the resources that you have available. So for some things that are non-routine but don't necessarily rise to the level of a provisional ballot, we have Chapter 10 of the Chief's Notebook. We call that problem solving. And that has a lot of tips for things like de-escalating difficult or tense situations with voters or other election officers. And more technical how-tos for instance, how to edit a voter check-in. Let's say you forgot to notate that a voter was curbside or something like that. How to cancel a check-in. How to spoil and replace a voter who has an issue with their ballot, what to do if a voter abandons their ballot, and how to handle situations for if a voter has a blank ballot, an overvoted ballot, a mismarked ballot, anything. None of these are provisional situations necessarily, but these are all things that can, they require some extra action. And so we have a lot of how-tos in that section. Talking more about non-routine voters and provisional voters, that is voters who have, they need to vote provisionally for some reason, or they have some other situation going on with their personal circumstance or their voter registration status. We offer a lot of resources for you to refer to keep you on the right track for what to offer that voter, whether that's a provisional or something else. Chapter 8 of your Chief's Notebook is all about non-routine and what ifs. In that chapter, we have a brief version of several different voter statuses and things that they may require. Things like a voter who's marked as inactive, a voter who's marked as confirmation mailing, and so on. These also contain the text of what we post or what we put on the e-poll books. So when a voter is in this status, you can review this in advance to see what the explanation for that status is and what the steps to take are. Additionally, in this section on yellow paper, we print the Virginia what ifs. This is a document produced by the Virginia Department of Elections that we format to go into our notebook and to have standard terminology for our procedures. And this has a variety of different what if situations. What if this happens? What if that happens? It walks through 23 different scenarios through and through, all the way through, including in that section will be the moving conditions grid and flowchart for how to determine whether a voter should do a same-day registration or if they have other voting options depending on where and when they've moved. And in the what ifs is the entire explanation for steps to take for those and many others, including a voter marked as inactive, different e-poll book statuses, different situations that a voter could be in. That'll be a very nice reference to refer to for the complete answer to a lot of things. I mentioned e-poll book prompts a second ago. As a reminder, whenever you tap on a voter who has a special circumstance that is notated in the e-poll books, the prompt that shows up on screen, the status message, will tell you what is the situation with that voter and tell you what the steps to take are. For your election officers, that's generally going to be to send them over to the chief or the assistant chief. And the next section will say what you can do for that voter and what steps you should take. So for this example, with a voter who has already returned their ballot by mail and has been pre-processed, it tells you that. It says the voter has returned their voted by mail absentee, their voted by mail ballot, and it instructs the chief it lets you know what their voting options can be. In this circumstance, it would be that the voter can vote provisionally, and it tells you which section of the voter referral worksheet to jump to and where more information is in the what ifs. In this circumstance, that's what if number 20C. And one other thing I'll mention is that our office is always available by phone to help you out with these, or with anything that you're unsure about. So feel free to give our office a call, especially if it's something related to a voter situation. You can call our voter support number. They're happy to walk you through it. Going off of the resources that we have available for you, we still have the voter referral worksheet that is required for these non-routine voters that are going to become a provisional. The question is, what are those situations? They're notated on the form. So once the voter has been referred to you as the chief or the assistant chief, you'll start this form if the voter has an absentee status, if they're marked as already voting, or if they have some sort of address situation. That is, they're not on the poll book and they need to vote provisionally or do an SDR, or they've moved and you need to work through the moving conditions. It's absentee, already voted, and SDR address situations. There's also a section D for if you're unsure, if you have something that you haven't seen before. It's the first time you've seen it all day. You just can't remember the exact procedure. You can give our office a call and write down what the procedure is that we walk you through on the phone. This is a resource that's intended to help you work through and get to the answer for any given voter most efficiently. So again, that's required for voters in these situations, and you'll write your information at the top and continue with the appropriate section of the checklist, A, B, C, or D, depending on the voter's circumstance. And so this outlines the steps to that worksheet. Kind of as I just mentioned, the chief or assistant chief gets it started once the voter has been sent over to you with the voter's information and their scenario. Using that scenario, you jump down to the box that is appropriate. We have A, B, C, and then C is pertaining to a voter who's moved. So there's a subsection if you need it to compare address rules for moving conditions, and D for unsure. On the back side, if you determine that that voter is going to be voting, needs to vote provisionally, and you're going to offer them a provisional ballot, you have a section to notate that and what reason you're offering it. Reason code number 1 is always same-day registration. That's a voter who is not registered to vote or is moved, and they live in your precinct, but they're not on the poll book in your precinct. They're not registered in your precinct, but they do live in your precinct. And then there are other options for many different reasons, such as a voter is voting by mail and has requested a vote by mail ballot and they don't have it with them. They're marked as already voted, and so on. Ordinarily, the provisional specialist would continue from this point. They would take that worksheet and use the checklist on the back. So the first half has been used for the decision-making part, and then it continues into a checklist to make sure that all of the steps are followed in order and sequentially. In this election, and in small elections like this one, the chief or the assistant chief will continue with this checklist. If you're helping out that voter, you can continue with the process and just keep going with the checklist. Or if you find it easier to pass that on over to your partner in the precinct, your chief or your assistant chief, you can do that as well, whatever works most efficiently for you. But the leadership team, the chief and the assistant chief, are responsible for this section. You continue down to the required steps, and that has everything about having having the election officer complete their part of the provisional ballot envelope, the election officer the voter fill in their sections, the election officer to do a double check to make sure that everything is complete on the envelope, enter them into the provisional log on the admin tablet, give them their required provisional notice and their I voted sticker, and send them on their way. So that's the process and some of the resources that we give to you to help you determine how to help any given voter who walks in with an atypical or non-routine situation. As you know, some are more common than others. I'll take a second here to talk about some of the most common ones that we have. The most common one is often a voter is not registered to vote, or they've moved and they're not on the poll book. Let's say they've moved recently and they have not updated their registration, something like that. Those are often going to become same-day registrations. So as a reminder, a same-day registration is a way of voting provisionally for a voter who lives in your precinct, but is not updated their registration or registered in your precinct. Let's say they missed the deadline to make that update or weren't aware that they had to. So this could be for a voter who has moved into your precinct or has just not registered in your precinct. Something that I'll mention is that not everybody is necessarily aware of is that there is a deadline to update your registration or to register before elections. Sometimes voters will register the day before the election and be surprised that it doesn't show that they're registered, and that's because they missed the deadline. But don't worry, they can vote provisionally through same-day registration, but it does have to be an SDR because, again, the easy way for you to remember that is they're not on your poll book and they're in your precinct. That's going to be a same-day registration. And in terms of resources, we didn't mention this earlier, but the precinct and address lookup app on your admin tablet is going to be the best way for you to confirm that a voter lives in your precinct. You can enter the address and see what precinct corresponds to it. Just be sure to use your voter referral worksheet to write all that down so you can determine, is this my precinct, or do I have to work through other options for this voter? Another really common situation is when a voter brings in their absentee ballot and they want to vote in the precinct. That's perfectly fine. We're happy to help them do that. That's going to be the absentee surrender process. As a reminder, a voter can exchange or turn in their absentee by mail ballot to vote in the precinct and insert their ballot on the ballot scanner. They just have to have their ballot and bring it with them. If they don't have it and they've been issued a ballot, they have to vote provisionally. So your voter referral worksheet walks you through this as well. But this is going to be something that's pretty straightforward. As you may recall from past elections, it's a pretty straightforward and simple transaction. It's a one-for-one trade. They surrender the ballot and can vote then on machine in the precinct. So those are some of the most common ones that we see as SDRs or absentee surrendered or some other absentee situation. And the absentee surrendered doesn't have to be a provisional ballot unless they did not bring that ballot with them. For provisional ballots in general, remember that the envelope has two sides to it, one side for all same-day registrations and the other side for all other provisional reasons, like anything related to an absentee, voter has already voted or something like that. Again, that's just one side for SDRs, clean, easy to remember, another side for anything else. So be sure to have the voter complete the correct side, depending on what reason that they are voting provisionally that you've worked through with them. We also have plastic overlays that we send out to each precinct. These are, you can see on screen an example of some provisional ballot envelopes filled out. And, for my part, it's pretty hard to read. When you drop the provisional overlay on top of it, it will occlude all of the non-required information on the envelope, all of the extra text that is optional for the voter to complete, but oftentimes ends up being some noise to make it harder to see whether or not the voter has completed it in full. When you use these provisional overlays, there's one for the SDR side of the envelope, and there's one for the non-SDR side of the envelope, the other provisional reasons. It has these cutouts for just the required sections of the envelope. So there are sections for the election officer's portion in the bottom left and the top right, at least in the SDR side's case, and for everything that the voter must provide. including the checkboxes that they complete and the information that they write in, their signature, and so on. We see a lot of our errors go down with voters missing information. Hopefully these are helpful to you to catch that at a glance. Just be sure if you see anything missing that you take it off and take another look, make sure the voter has a chance to correct that. These overlays are in the English version of the envelope only, because that's the one that we use most commonly. Talking about some common mistakes that we see when it comes to provisional envelopes and voters filling out or the provisional process in general. Check boxes are easy for a voter to miss, right? When you have to write your information out, there's a large section for that, but a checkbox is a much smaller thing. It's easy for a voter as they're scrolling along to miss that they have to offer some information in a checkbox. For instance, question number 3 asks if a voter has been convicted of a felony or judged mentally incapacitated and disqualified to vote. The voter must answer that question either yes or no. If they answer yes, they have to answer the second question, the follow-on question about whether or not their voting rights have been restored. It's up to the voter to provide the truthful answer to this question. You don't have to ask for any documentation or anything of that sort. They are registering to vote in the normal way that they would, but you must verify completeness of this and other sections of the envelope. Because as I mentioned, checkboxes are, perhaps you can relate in life in general, checkboxes are easy to miss doing. Our provisional overlay, the overlays that you have for the SDR side of the envelope only covers the no answer to that first question, because that's the most common answer we see. The voter has to offer a complete answer. So answering yes and then answering on that second line would also be a complete answer. So like I mentioned before, if you see anything amiss when you use the provisional overlay, take it off and take another check, take another look to see if the voter has provided complete information or if you have to give them another chance to fill in anything missing. Some other errors that we see, and this is more on the side of the determination of a provisional ballot. I want to remind everyone that reason number 6 for voting provisionally is other, and that is rare. Oftentimes, I'll say most of the time, when we see someone being issued a provisional ballot for reason number 6 other, it could be something else. Oftentimes, that's going to be a same-day registration. Like I mentioned before, if a voter says that they just registered, a few days ago, but they're not showing on the poll book, you might think for a second that they don't have to do a same-day registration. That's where you'd want to pause and remember what I said, that if a voter is not on your poll book and they live in your precinct, it is a same-day registration. Because as I mentioned, we have a close of books, a pause to registration before any given election. If you have a number 6 other, you can always give us a call and we'll help you out with that. You can call our voter support line. We can walk you through what that voter's options could be, or if that is indeed another situation. The voter referral worksheet and the provisional log also remind you to give us a call because we want to be able to help you out with these. As I mentioned, these should be exceedingly rare, so we want to make sure that you're on the right track. The provisional log also has a place for you to clarify a situation where, let's say you've told the voter what their correct voting precinct is, but it's right before polls close, or they're really insisting. You can provide us more information on that transaction and what that conversation with the voter was like. So reminder, reason code number 6, that's a rare one, but all the other reasons, voter has already voted, they're voting by mail with no ballot to surrender, or they've requested one with no ballot to surrender. Those are the much more common reasons on this side of the provisional envelope. And our most common one is SDR on the other side of the envelope. And as a reminder, throughout the day, you're going to be placing your completed provisional envelopes into your green provisional bag. This is something that you set up during opening procedures, and you seal and open the flap so that it can receive provisional ballots, but you won't be able to retrieve them throughout the day. This isn't new. This is something we rolled out earlier this year, but this is a reminder that once you have gone through the provisional process, the voter has voted their ballot, they've completed their provisional envelope, you will log it in the provisional log on the admin tablet, and once you've done that, insert it into this green bag throughout the day. So during the day, provisional envelopes, completed provisional ballots go into this green bag during the day. Again, after you've logged it, I would suggest putting a little check mark in the top right corner of the provisional envelope. That's perfectly fine, as a little reminder for yourself that it's okay to put it into the bag. It may be slow enough that you're able to do the process through and through for each voter without any delays, and that would be great. But the provisional ballot envelopes with ballots inside go into this bag during the day. During closing procedures, of course, you'll put them into their appropriate 1A envelopes, which Jean is going to talk about in the next section here, which is a good transition point. Jean, I'm going to turn it on over to you here to talk about closing the polls and some reminders there. Jean?
Thanks, Sean. Okay, the polls are now closed. The last voter has left the room. Get a drink of water, take some deep breaths, and slow down. You've got this, we've got you, and remember, we are always a phone call away. You have checklists for every single task, as you can see on this next slide. You've got a Chief's closing checklist. This is your guide to the entire closing process. Part of that starts in the afternoon by having your election officers get comfortable with closing by handing out those red closing guides and giving them a chance to read them over, discuss it with them, answer any questions that may have. Give out pens with your closing guides, your opening guides too, for that matter. Have them check things off as they do each step. Mistakes happen when people don't read the directions, when they skip the steps and they're in a hurry. Most of the issues that happen during closing are from not following the checklist. So you're going to use your guide to guide them. As people complete their tasks, you're going to verify that things have been completed. That's something that you can share with your assistant chief, who's going to monitor which aspect of the closing process. And by the way, wait until all the voters have left the voting room before you start closing. That includes taking down the signs. We don't want voters to feel like you're kind of hurrying them out. The ballot scanners are what you're going to do first. If you're using 2 scanners, which is unlikely in this election, you would start by closing the ballot scanner that has the highest public count first. Finish closing that scanner. That's going to be the one that you use during the day before you start on the second one. That way, if something goes wrong, you have that second scanner as your backup. So don't try to cut corners by closing both of them at the same time, even though you only used one scanner. You don't want to pull the flash drives out of the scanner until it is completely shut down. That means all the lights are off, the power light is off, the thing is asleep. If the drives are pulled too soon, the data on them gets corrupted, just like crashing the hard drive of a computer. If that happens, order pizza, because you're going to be there for a few more hours rescanning all your ballots on the other scanner, and we don't want that to happen for you. We know your collector officers are waiting on the USB flash drives, but they can just hang out until everything's ready. It's okay, they'll be fine. If you have any machine issues during closing, don't try to figure it out yourself. These machines, this is only going to be our second election with them, second or third, so we're still getting a little bit of the hang of everything. Everybody's getting very familiar with them now. Don't try to figure it out yourself. Call the tech support number on the inside cover of your notebook. They'll walk you through all the steps. And if you do have any machine problems during the day, poll books, scanners, whatever, make sure to write that up in your chief's notes for us. The flash drives that the collectors will be waiting for, there's 4 of them. There are 2 with purple labels and 2 with white labels. Each scanner contains 1 purple and 1 white. So you're going to get 4 altogether. We color code them to make it really obvious where they go. Yet every election, we get a couple of precincts who don't get this right. So things that the drives labeled with purple labels go in the purple pouch, which you will seal with a zip tie seal. Notice how that zip tie seal goes both through the grommet of the purple pouch and through the zipper pull as well. That's how it actually gets secured, by going through the pull and the grommet. The drives with white labels go in your white envelope number 7. So purple and purple, white and white. Super easy. If you match your colors, you're going to be fine. This is part of your responsibility as the chief to do this, not the collector officers. You're preparing this stuff for them. So just go through the closing checklist and you're going to get everything just right. Now let's have a quick note about provisional specialist closing. That's the other part of things that the collector officers are waiting for. And these are your envelopes 1A. During the day, you've been putting the provisional and STR envelopes, all the green envelopes, in the green provisional bag. Now, after the polls close, during the closing procedures, those provisional specialists, you and the assistant chief, are going to be opening this bag and sorting the 1A envelopes into two piles. You're going to have an SDR pile and a non-SDR pile. These are going to be recorded on the closing numbers worksheet, and then the collector officers will return those when they come back. All envelope 1As are returned even if you don't use them. So we need to know affirmatively by getting back even an envelope that's empty and sealed that you've taken the time to make sure that you didn't have any. So now the collector officers have their materials. They've got the triplock bag with the chain of custody form for the number of ballots in your absentee drop box. You've got your 1A envelopes and you've got your sealed purple pouch. Little trick for the collector officers, remind them to tear the receipt strip off the top of the bag before they seal it. Otherwise, it gets to be a little messy. And that seal goes in envelope number 7, just like any other seal. I know your collector officers want to leave as soon as possible, but stop them before they leave and make sure they have everything you see here. Triplock bag, purple pouch sealed, and all the 1A envelopes. And make sure that the purple pouch has the purple drives in it. A special note for a few co-located precincts. We do have some for this election. Collector officers have double of everything. So there's 2 pouches, 4 green envelopes, 2 triplock bags. If you shared a drop box with your co-located precinct, you're going to have 1 triplock bag that has all the envelopes in it. The other will be empty with a chain of custody form saying 0. So there's still going to be 2 bags, but only one of them will have any absentee ballots in it. Just to recap, our new poll book case that holds all of the poll books, there is a closing guide that shows how to pack this, because at the end of a long day, you might not remember exactly where everything went. We find it helps with weight distribution, making it a little easier to pick up and carry this case. If you kind of pack things towards the middle of it, that just keeps the weight in the middle of the case. The statement of results is the most important document you will do all day long. So as a reminder, the SOR helper is a required tool that we've given you that literally makes this thing such a cookbook. If you've been a chief or assistant chief several years ago, you may remember a very long document, lots of math. You don't even have to do math when you use the SOR helper, because if you plug in every number from the closing numbers worksheet into the SOR helper, it will then show you an image of your completed SOR that you then copy down to the paper form. Both copies of the SOR, front and back. You just can't get any easier than that, seriously. If you do get stuck at any point in the statement of results, maybe things aren't balancing, you're not sure how to handle that, give us a call. Don't call your rover, call us. We're going to walk you through the process. We're going to help you look at your documents and see where the error might be. We do always get a couple of SORs that maybe part of it is blank or even not at all. So please do look over both copies of the SOR before you put them in envelope number 2. There shouldn't be anything blank here, and make sure that you've got printed names and your signatures from all your election officers who are present at closing. You're almost done. Little notes here and a shout out to our voting equipment team. They really find it helpful if you pack your cage using the cage packing guide that you have among all of your red closing guides. Because sometimes they get cages back that look like this. You could, as the old Christmas Story movie, you could put your eye out. Look at those wire frames sticking out there where the red arrow is. Leave the signs on the frames, pack the cage the way it shows in the guide, and things will be a lot safer for everybody loading, unloading trucks. Then part of your cage packing is getting it locked correctly. Next slide. Oh, nope, we jumped one. The lock for the top and the bottom, there are locks both sides, both top and bottom. You'll want to make sure that you've got the slide bolts fully engaged before you lock that cage. The slide bolt can be a little difficult to get engaged, to slide it and make it go up into the hole that it goes into. So you may have to kind of wiggle the cage a bit to get it to go in. That's something that your rover can very much help you with. They are very good at coercing cages into submission. So don't hesitate to give them a call if you can't get this thing done. Please be sure to fill out that cage security log. That includes the closing seal for the cage, so that we know that when they unpack it, that the cage was sealed on this date. It's all part of that chain of custody that we use throughout every election process. All right, it's just about time to go home. You should be bringing 5 things to the depot, which is here at the Government Center. Your black kit, the e-poll book case, the voted ballots, I'm sure you'll have just one, your unvoted ballots in your number 6 box, and your chief supply return form. This is really important. This again is a chain of custody document saying you, the chief, are delivering to us these ballots and this poll pad case and this kit. So fill this out, and do be sure to text or call your rover before you leave. They can't go home until all the precincts on their route are closed, or dark as we say. So they're going to want to hear from you. So help everybody get some sleep on Tuesday, December 9th, by making sure that you let them know. So now I'm going to turn things back to Sean to do some final reminders.
Thanks, Jean. I appreciate you walking us through closing procedures with those tips and reminders. I just want to mention again that our timelines are a little bit different for this special election. So a lot of the resources that we would have already sent to you by now or had posted, we'll be sending out to you next week. So if you don't see anything in the election officer portal, like your the room that voters should use or the door or that sort of thing, don't fret. That's coming, and we'll definitely let you know. For now, though, I want to take a second to have us do the election officer oath and swear you in to serve in this election. So if you would please raise your right hand and repeat along with me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will perform the duties for this election according to law and the best of my ability, and that I will studiously endeavor to prevent fraud, deceit, and abuse in conducting this election. Congratulations. On behalf of the Electoral Board and the General Registrar, you are now sworn in for this election. And on election morning, you'll swear in your election officers in turn. Later today, after this briefing, we're going to be sending you an email with a link to take a short quiz to receive credit for having watched this briefing or participated in this briefing. Your deadline to take that quiz is going to be next Tuesday, November 25th. So please go ahead and do that as soon as you're able to, as soon as you can. It should be a short quiz. We know there's holidays coming up next week. So if you have travel plans, you can get that out of the way today or over the weekend. And just remember, in terms of other final reminders, that with holidays next week, your facilities may take a little bit to respond to you if they have if they're closing at the end of next week or something like that. But you're always able to reach out to them or ask us if you need us to help you get in contact with them. We're going to turn to questions in just a moment here. We've been collecting several questions throughout the briefing that we're going to turn to in a Q&A session here. If you have any additional questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen in Zoom to submit them, and we can add them to our live question and answer session here. If we're unable to get to your question, you can always reach out to us at electionofficers@fairfaxcounty.gov or 703-324-4735. The same contact information that we used to reach out to you already. We're happy to answer any questions before Election Day, either now or then. Before we turn to Q&A, though, I want to check in with Florence Brown, our early voting manager, to see how things are going with turnout and with early voting for the special election. Flo, do you have anything you want to share?
Good morning, Sean. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Hello from early voting, where every day continues to be election day. We are still voting, as you might imagine. Early voting for the Braddock special election began on Friday, October 24th. We have just one location open right now, and since October 24th, we've had 2,227 votes cast. We had good turnout early on when we had the overlap between the November election and the Braddock at the start of the Braddock election, but things have slowed down a little bit, understandably so. Early voting continues through Saturday, December 6th. Burke Center Library will open on Saturday, November 29th. So we'll have two locations open starting Saturday, November 29th. And again, as you know, Saturday, November 29th is after the Thanksgiving Day holiday. Hours at Burke Center Library are Monday through Friday, 1 to 7. And on Saturdays, we're open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So starting Saturday, we'll have two locations, Burke Center Library, also the Government Center. Keep in mind that the Government Center hours are different. Government Center is open 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, but we all have the same hours on Saturday, both locations 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Keep in mind also, with next week being the Thanksgiving week or Thanksgiving Day holiday, we're open Monday through Wednesday here at the Government Center, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., closed on Thursday for Thanksgiving, and Friday after Thanksgiving, that's a county holiday, and then we open back up on Saturday. So it's not too late to vote for the Braddock election, especially if you're going to be serving on election day. So let your friends and family know. And we look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Sean. Back to you.
Thanks, Flo. We'll turn it on over to the other side of the coin here. Ben, do you have any updates you want to tell us about how voting by mail has been going for this election?
I do. Hey, folks. So absentee by mail is going pretty well. We've mailed a little under 9,000 and got a little over 3,000 back. We are successfully beating early voting by about 1,000 ballots right now. I know Flo doesn't like me rubbing that in, but I've got to take my W's where I can get them around here. We're cruising along. All of our crew is working pretty hard getting everything done. You're not going to see anything crazy or unusual. We don't think on election day you might have 15, 20 ballots at most in your drop boxes, but I wouldn't expect you're going to have anything like November in there. And just, keep an eye out. If people have questions, y'all have all the answers in your Chief's notebooks, or you have the resources at your disposal to find those answers. So.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks for that update. We're going to turn it on over to some Q&A now. Jean and Susan, do you guys have questions for us to jump into here?
We sure do, Sean. We've got some things teed up for various folks. We're going to start with Justin. And Justin, where are we going to find our equipment keys? And where will we find the lanyard that will open the cage?
Give me one moment to get my video and everything back on. But for your precinct cage keys, those lanyards will be on. Are y'all able to see me properly? All right, just making sure everything's good with that this time. So your lanyard keys for the precinct cage equipment cages, those are going to be connected to the top of your chief kit when you pick that up. And just like we said earlier, a reminder that the actual keys for the voting equipment themselves, those will be in the orange pouch with your voter permit cards as well as your equipment password cards. You will not open that orange pouch until election morning in the presence of all election officers.
Good reminder about that, not opening that pouch. Thanks, Justin. Now we have a question for Tyrone, the leader of our voting equipment team. We've got a question. When can we expect that the equipment cage will be delivered to the precinct?
Good afternoon. Excellent question. All deliveries should be on site by the 3rd or 4th of December. The non-schools are going first, and then the schools the next day. Those will take place the 1st and the 2nd. Everybody should have their materials on site by the 3rd or the 4th.
Appreciate that. Thank you. This information will be available in the election officer portal on the precinct page, and that will be up Monday or Tuesday of next week. And now we're going to ask a question of Cheryl. Pardon me. I think this one may have been answered in the Q&A, but it's just a really good one to go over because it does come up every election. Non-SDR, non-SDR provisional ballots, and especially reason code 6 can be confusing. What are some situations when we should use reason code 6? And when should we definitely not use reason code 6 for a provisional?
Thanks. Good question. We get a lot of chiefs misusing that reason code. Primarily, the most frequent time you'll use it is if your poll book shows that a voter has already voted, whether they voted in person in satellites, whether you think they voted that day, maybe they were marked in incorrectly, whatever, or they voted by mail and it shows that their ballot's been pre-processed. That's when you would use it. And write us a little note, especially if it's an already voted on the same day. Let us know what's going on. Was this a father-son mix-up? Do you know what happened? Maybe an election officer checked that voter in incorrectly and it shows they're already voted, but they hadn't voted. They only just arrived. So leave us a little note when you're using that. Don't use it when you see a flag on the voter's record. Too many chiefs give a provisional ballot incorrectly and then mark that number 6 if the voter's record shows a confirmation mailing or overseas or military, inactive. Don't use that. All of those reasons a voter can vote normally if they're in the right precinct. For inactive, of course, you have to do the address confirmation statement, I believe, if I've got the name of it right. But all the others, the voter can vote just fine. The most important thing is call us. We are sitting here on the phones all day long supporting you guys out there in the field. Bushra has a team of people who know all about provisionals, all about SDRs, and we're waiting to answer your questions. We'd much rather spend 5 minutes on the phone with you than receive a provisional ballot that was unnecessary, especially when there is still a chance that ballot may not count because it wasn't filled out correctly. So we want to avoid any risk of the voter not being able to cast their vote. So please, anything that's unusual, anything you're not sure about, call us up. Don't assume you know the answer. We'd love to talk to you about it and walk you through the situation.
Thank you, Cheryl. And yes, I definitely echo your comments that if you have a question about any particular voter, whether they are eligible to vote, whether they're eligible to do an SDR or a provisional, call us. Their voter services number, there's one on the inside cover of your chief's notebook. It's a dedicated number just for the chiefs and assistant chiefs. The public has a different number. And those folks have special training. They can look up in the voter registration system and see the voter's history and whatever their particular details are. Sticking with our wonderful voter services people, I have a question for Bushra. And as a matter of fact, as I'm saying this out loud, I realize I've answered it myself. Who should we call? if we have a question about a provisional voter, and that would be Bushra's team, the voter services people. So I apologize for that, fumbling that one.
Gene, I
Bushra,
actually
how
had a
many?
quick question for Bushra. Sean, go ahead.
By all means, thank
No,
you.
go ahead, Ravi.
I think we may have had the same thought. Bushra, I'm very curious because I don't know the exact number. I think some of our election officers are curious. How many voters are eligible to vote in this Braddock District special election?
Oh,
I think
Bushra, I
we have
think
a
you might
little
be muted.
I
Or we
think
might
she's
have
not
some trouble
muted, but there
hearing.
might be some trouble with the audio. We can come back to you, Bushra. So everyone will be waiting with bated breath to know the answer to that question. Gene,
We
Sean, who's
certainly
next?
we have one for Cord and one for Ben, and then we're going to be leaning into Sean here for a bit. So for Cord, our IT manager, if a voter shows up in one of the Braddock District precincts, but they don't live in the Braddock precinct, how's that going to look on the e-poll books? Is there a special color or a prompt? Is there anything weird about this?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Gene. And hi, everybody. So essentially, your poll books are going to work the same way that they would in a normal general election. So when you look up a voter, if they're not for the precinct that you are working in, if they don't reside in that precinct, they're going to show in the far column, they're going to show red text that says, I believe, what's a wrong location. I got a poll book right here to double check. You'll also see what precinct they are registered in. And so you can direct them to the right precinct. If the voter doesn't believe that that is their correct precinct or they have additional questions, you can always reference the PAL tool. So you could show them on a map, maybe that might help them understand. Or like we've mentioned a couple of times, you can always call into the office for assistance if you have a voter where we're just having trouble confirming exactly where they need to vote. But again, it'll be the same as a general election. Anytime that they are not in the precinct that you're working at, you will get in that far right column, you will see where it says wrong location.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Cord. And then we have one question for Ben. When a voter is surrendering or dropping off their absentee ballot envelope for this special election, is there anything unique about that? Because it is a special election, anything we should know that's different?
Nothing different from what we talked about in the last Chiefs briefing, which was a month ago, 3 weeks ago now. The Braddock District ballots still have the B on them, but we do want to make sure that they're returning a Braddock ballot. There may be some November ballots mixed in there, so just verify that that is the correct ballot that they're returning. Otherwise, the drop boxes and anything like that, you can just let whatever envelope they'd like to put in there go in. That's totally fine, provided we have the correct information. The envelope itself does not have to be a Braddock envelope for a Braddock ballot to be inside and be counted.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Ben. I'm going to hand off to Susan, who's got some questions lined up for Sean.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you today. Sean, as the font of all knowledge, can you please answer some of these questions? So since the chiefs and assistant chiefs are handling provisional ballots this time, where can they find refreshers on how to handle that process?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I don't know if I will accept the title as the font of all knowledge, but I'll try my best here.
Hi.
If somebody wants an update, I think we have Bushra's audio here. I'll answer this question and then we can check back in with you in a second, Bushra. So if somebody wants an update on provisional procedures, especially if it's been a while since you've looked at that, there's a couple of resources on our election officer portal. These are all public classes. We have our online provisional basics and our chief basics classes that you can review at any time. Both of them cover different parts of the provisional process. I would suggest reviewing both of them if you need that refresher before Election Day. Additionally, the Chief's Notebook, like I said, is going to be posted shortly soon here. Within a few days, at the beginning of next week, you'll be able to review the chapters there as well. So we've got the online classes for you posted right now, and our Chief's Notebook is going to be available for review. And frankly, with the election only 2 weeks ago, we've changed very little. You can always review the prior version of the Chief's Notebook for answers to those questions. Bushra, I think we have your audio working here. So I'll repeat the question that we had to you. How many voters do we have eligible in the Braddock District Special Election?
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for willing and working your fourth election in 2025. My first question was about what line to call, and I can repeat that number, 703-324-8765. Please direct your call and question for SDR, provisional, eligibility of voter to us, as Cheryl mentioned, and everybody. We are here to support you. Regarding their question about how many registered voters, I think 81,000. I hope I'm not wrong, or 89. Which one is correct? Correct me, guys. 81 or 89?
89.
Portia, I think you're the fount of all voter registration knowledge. We look to you for that one.
It's
You-
89
Thousand.
and change. 89 to
See?
90.
I know it. And it's on top of my head. I know how many voters registered in Fairfax. Sometimes I know them by names. Sometimes I know how many twins we have in Fairfax County.
Well, that'll be other trivia that maybe we'll cover in a future briefing.
Yes.
But I know that's a little bit over 1/10 of the county participating in the special election. So thanks for that update.
Sure.
I'll turn it back over. Susan, do you have more questions?
Okay, so yeah, I've got questions for Sean still. Other than service dogs, are animals allowed in the precincts?
That's a good question. The answer to that is no. For liability reasons, we only want to allow service dogs in the precinct, not other animals. A voter is welcome to come back later in the day if they happen to be out on a walk. But service animals are allowed. It's just you can never predict if a dog is going to be aggressive or anything like that. So we want to keep it straightforward and say other animals are not allowed in the precinct. Thanks for the question.
All right. So moving on to closing. Do I have to use the SOR helper?
Well, you don't, because you won't be in a precinct, Susan, but all of our chiefs and assistant chiefs should be using the SOR helper. Yes, it's going to be on your admin tablet. And as a reminder, you'll copy the numbers over from your closing numbers worksheet that your election officers are filling out during closing. And the reason we ask you to fill it out is because it cuts down on errors. We see errors go down over time, especially in precincts that use the SOR helper, because at the end of a long day, we don't want you to, we want to set you up for success. So we want to make sure that, you don't have to do math that you don't have to do. Remember where numbers go. Once you put the numbers into that, it'll, like magic, give you the format of the SOR so that you can copy it down and sign it. So we do require that, but it really is because it cuts down on errors, cuts down on the issues that we see during Canvas, and we're trying to set you up for success.
Great. And we do see that the SORs are coming back much cleaner since we started using the SOR helper. Quick question, Sean, still, when is the portal going to be available for all my information, all the chief's information?
Sure, great question. Like I mentioned a couple times earlier this briefing, our timelines are a little bit out of sync because we're doing this briefing on a Friday that we wouldn't normally. It does take us some time to turn the portal around between elections so that we can present to you information related to the current election. So we're going to have that ready for you early next week. We'll send out something by email to let you know when that is launched, so you can go see information about your polling places and your roster. So as soon as we can, we'll get that over to you so you can start doing all the contacting that you would want to do. Yeah, as soon as we can, be on the lookout for an email from us. We'll try to get that over so you have time to start reaching out to people before people take time off for holidays and things like that.
Great. And one final question I think we have back to Ben. How is the office informing voters if they're not able to vote in this election?
Susan, if it's okay, I think we're going to ask Sean Stewart that question. Our
Okay, sorry.
Our communications and compliance division chief. It's okay it's easy to see. He was formerly our absentee manager. We can follow the question on over to him. Sean, are you available to answer that? What
I
are
am
we doing to outreach?
Absolutely. So great great question. I can tell you that we took the other tack, right? We reached out to everybody who is eligible to vote in the Braddock Supervisory District special election. We had a mailing go out to all those registered voters in plentiful Fairfax orange. So we're hoping it stood out in their mailbox. They were able to see that information. Gave them some information on vote by mail, early voting, and also to remember that there's an election day on December 9th, unlike usual. So we've got that out there. We've also got additional information posted on the county website. As you might imagine, right, there's maybe a bit of election dudgery at this point, but we do have some of the local folks, Patch and other people that are putting information out there. So we're hoping they're seeing it.
Thanks, Sean. And a little bit of synergy. The Chiefs notebooks will also be orange, so everything is a little bit
Fantastic.
serendipitous. Glad to see that lines up. You have any more questions to go through?
No, so that's all we have for right now.
All right, Ravi, I know you haven't had a lot to say during this briefing, which is different from normal. Do you have anything you want to mention as we close up here?
I do, which is just one small point. For those of you that have been chiefs or assistant chiefs for a while, you may recall from past briefings that Sean Stewart is a very big fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, who they seem to be turning around their season a little bit this year. Let's see what happens, if they can make another Super Bowl run or not. But I personally, Sean Stewart, am a big fan of the Fairfax County Chiefs. I've really enjoyed working with our Fairfax County Chiefs and assistant chiefs.
You know, Ravi, the Kansas City Chiefs could learn from the Fairfax County Chiefs because they've always got a winning record, unlike the nonsense in Kansas City right now.
That is a very good point. Well, if the Kansas City Chiefs do make the Super Bowl is being held not far from my new jurisdiction. So come out, we can make a visit of it. But no, in closing, just thank you, everyone. Really appreciate all the time we've gotten to spend with you as chiefs and assistant chiefs. Let me send it back over to Sean Rogers to close this out.
Thanks, Ravi. And I can say personally, I appreciate one of your last actions with our office being a corny joke that always keeps things fun. So that's how I'm going to remember you. But no, in all seriousness, thank you for everything you've done, Ravi. And thank you to all of our chiefs and assistant chiefs serving in this election. I know it's a lot back to back, and we're very grateful for your service. And I know the voters of Fairfax County are also grateful that you're going to be there on Election Day for them. So as always, we are available by phone and by email for any questions that come up between now and Election Day. But with that, I'll close us out here. We're going to be posting the recording of this briefing later on, and we'll send that out to you so you can review it at your leisure. And be on the lookout for the quiz confirmation so that we can confirm that you attended and understood this briefing here. I want to say thanks, everyone, and have a good rest of your time until Election Day, and then have a great Election Day itself. Bye, everyone.